to configure Netbeans to be able to interact with an SQLite databases using the Java database connectivity that we will talk about in class. And the first thing is to download the driver for this. There's an SQLite open source driver. I've put it on the Sakai site. So if we go to the lessons here, just sort of click on download the jar files. There are actually 3 jar files that you will need, and they are the SQLite JDBC, which those are the basic jars, and then these others seem to have to do with some kind of logging thing. So you can keep them in the downloads wherever you save them. And now we need to go to Netbeans, and we want to create a library. And here's how we do that. I right click at the top of the project, go all the way down, choose properties, then libraries. And now there's module path and class path. We want class path. So to the right of class path, there's a little plus button. We click that, and we want to add a library. Now, hopefully when you created your Netbeans project, you had clicked that little checkbox that said copy library files or something like that, and that this is what that created. If it didn't do that, then there is a fix, but hopefully you followed those directions. So click on create, and we'll call it SQLite. And there it is. Now we want to add jar/folder. So click on that, and then what we want to do is we want to go to our home, and then the downloads wherever it was saved. And then here are the SQLite files, and we can simply select all of these, add the jar folder, and we say, are we sure? Yes, we're sure. We OK that. Add library, and we OK that. And now we are in business. So just to check this out, to make sure that it's actually connecting with something, let's create our first little test, just to make sure that it's actually working. I'm going to create a package called JDBC, a sub package of our R1. And let's just see what it takes to connect. Call it hello SQLite. You can always start with a hello program. And okay. Now here's for some reason, Netbeans has been a little bit weird about importing this. So normally I don't recommend this, but the Java files we want are java.sql. We'll do a star. Again, normally I don't like the stars. Okay, it says it's unused. We're going to use it in just a second. Okay, so the first thing, we can actually create a database just by kind of referring to it. So let's call it hello SQLite.db. The 2 extensions are either DB or SQLite. DB is fewer typing, so way to connect with it is with it's a URL-like thing. It isn't actually a network, an internet type of thing, but every database has kind of a prefix which is unique to it, and it kind of follows a URL-like format. So let's create one. I'll call it DB URL. And what we want to do is we want to use the prefix for the database we're using. In this case, it is SQLite. And if we fix our imports, we see that This is a static final instance variable. In fact, if we navigate to its declaration, we can see it's a public static final prefix, and it is JDBC :SQLite. That's the prefix for doing this. Other ones, if it was MySQL, it's typically JDBC :MySQL. So we'll concatenate that with our database name. And now the next step is to get the connection. And for some reason, Netbeans is very wonky about I'll just import the whole thing. I normally don't like to do that, but okay, so because connections are, we're going to have exceptions if we try to click, because things can go wrong. Okay, we want to get the connection from something called a driver manager, and what we are getting is this DB URL. And so we notice we have a little red squiggly here, unreported exception, SQL exception. So we'll surround that with our with this, and then we always want to give a finally, because why? Because stuff can go wrong, and we want to make sure that we close all system resources. So if our connection is not null, you've seen this pattern in a number of other places before. We're going to close it. We want to make sure to always close our resources. And again, that will throw another exception. So we want to surround that with try catch. It gets littered, but as you can see, we really only have 2 lines of code here. All right, so we got our connection. It's now safely closing. And what's interesting about this is that we have actually, when we run this, then what has happened is I ran the previous one. Let's okay, let's run it from here. Okay, so now you notice that it ran successfully, but look at this. It actually created our database right here. And so now we're actually in business. We can, at this point, we can create statements, we can interact with it, so that's really all it takes to create the database. So as you've seen in the, if we're doing with MySQL, we have to create database and all that other sort of stuff. The one thing about SQLite is that it's very light. So we have just created this file is going to hold the contents of our database. And so now before we do anything else with it, we need to create tables, populate the tables and stuff like that. But that is for another day. What we have done here is we have configured Netbeans and verified that it actually connects with the database.